This morning I'm going to be in Daniel chapter number 3. It's a very familiar story. We've all learned this story since we were little kids, but God, if we look into stuff and read and study, God can take something that we've heard forever and just give us something out of it. So Daniel chapter number 3, starting in verse 14, says, Nebuchadnezzar spake and said unto them, Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, do not ye serve my gods, nor worship the golden image which I have set up? Now, if ye be ready, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, the flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the image which I have made. Well, but if ye worship not, ye shall be cast the same hour into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. And who is that God that shall deliver you out of my hands? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this matter. If it be so, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thine hand, O king. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Then was Nebuchadnezzar full of fury, and the form of his visage was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Therefore he spake and commanded that they should heat the furnace 7 times more than it was wont to be heated. When we're facing the fire in our life, when we're facing the storms and the furnace, the fire that we go through in our lives, we should strive to be like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. We should always stand on our faith, stand on our love and trust in God. We should know, just like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego knew that God was going to be there for them in the furnace. We, as Christians, need to know that God is going to be there for us. No matter what we're going through, no matter what we're facing, we always have to know that God is going to be there for us. There's nothing that the enemy can throw at you that's going to catch God off guard. God will never be caught off guard. There's no temptation, no threat, no pain, no hurt, no loss, nothing that we can face or go through that's going to catch God off guard. And when we face these things, we're not to compromise on God's word. We're not to compromise on our beliefs. We're not to compromise our faith. We're not to compromise our trust in God for anything. We can't compromise to try to keep from having to face that fire, to avoid going through the fire. We can't compromise on God because we think it'll make our life easier. That's not what a Christian does. We have to stand on God and God alone. Sometimes it seems like it would be easier, just to look the other way, or to do the wrong thing, Sometimes it looks like it would be a lot easier than standing for God and doing what's right. And our flesh wants to take the easy road. But we can't compromise on God. We have to stand for God. It would sometimes, may seem easier to worship that little g God than to face the fire. It would have been very easy for these three to bow down to a golden image instead of facing the furnace. It would have made their lives, to their flesh, would have seemed much simpler to said, oh, well, I can do this, because if not, what I'm facing, there's no way I can handle that. But that's not what they done. They stood on their faith and trust in God. Facing the fire is what strengthens our faith. It's what builds our character. It's what builds that testimony that we can share with others. We have to face the fire sometimes in order to grow closer to God, in order to strengthen that relationship with God. Christians compromising on their morals and beliefs and bowing down to the little g gods is why the world has got to the shape that it's in. Christians we're all guilty of it. We'll all compromise a little here or a little there. And you think, well, it's just something small. But there's a snowball effect. If you compromise on one thing, that makes it easier to compromise on the next. And that makes it easier to compromise on the next and the next. And before you know it, you've completely compromised on everything you believe and stand for. So that's why we have to be careful and make sure that we're standing on God. As believers, we have to stand strong on God and His Word. We cannot make those compromises. We have to be like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. We have to be willing to trust God and trust that He is there for us and trust that He is going to deliver us through that fire, through the storm, through whatever we're facing in our lives. They stood strong on their faith, and that's exactly what we have to learn to do. We have to stand as strong as they did on our faith. We, as the church, as the born-again believers, need to get a backbone. We have to get a backbone and stand tall and stand strong and stand proud for God and what God stands for. We have to stand on God's Word. And we have to stand on God's Word alone. We cannot compromise that. There are more little g gods in the world right now than there's ever been before. It don't matter where you turn, there's something. It can be anything. It can be your job, your phone, TV, money, a car, a house, a hobby, anything that you put before the one and only God is a little g God. So be careful, because you could have one of those little g gods in your life and never even realize it. Wonder if anyone might have a word for the Lord this morning.
In the scripture, Nebuchadnezzar is truly the government right here.
Oh, yes. to go against man's law to stand for God's law.
But you better pick your side before that day.
That's exactly right.
The 3 Hebrew boys would have waited to that moment that they were put under the pressure, they would have failed.
They would have bowed down.
But if they had their minds made up way before
Oh, yes.
where they were going to stand.
That's exactly right. Amen. Amen. We serve a mighty God. We serve a God that can do things those little g gods can't do. If no one else has anything, I think we need a volunteer, if we can get one for the nursery this morning. Anybody? All right, thank you, Shannon. And then I think today is also going to be move-up day for the Sunday school classes. I think if you're not sure if you're moving up or not, you should be able to ask your teachers, and they should help you decide if you're moving up or not. So, no one else has anything, we'll dismiss the classes.
Appreciate it. Good morning. How is everybody? Anybody got a testimony this morning?
Always thank God for what He's done for me, and for saving my soul. I didn't deserve it. Blessed me with a beautiful family. Blessed me with way more than I ever deserved. And
Me too. He's poured his blessings out in my life.
Thank God for just opening His Word. You can read it 100 times, but if you're not in communion with God, you never understand what it says, and then all of a sudden it just blossoms and it just opens up for you.
Yep. When you read it and understand it, it becomes alive in your life. It becomes part of who you are. I truly believe that. Eric, you pray for us this morning.
Lord, thank you for the good word this morning. Thank you for having you use James and God, everything that's already happened. Lord, we pray that you just use Kevin here for a little while before the rest of the service. We will open our hearts to your word and just let it do what only it can in our lives. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. You know, it's amazing how things change over time. James is talking about how we can make our different things our gods. I was thinking this morning that me and Angie got married in 1999, and you know that's a point in your life that you tend to remember. But think of how things were in 1999. Cell phones, hardly anybody had a cell phone in 1999. Okay? In my lifetime, a cell phone has changed our lives more than anything else that I've seen in my life. Now, it's a phone, it's a computer, it's everything you need at the tip of your finger, and you can turn it off, put it in your pocket, or put it in your purse or whatever. It's an amazing thing that we can stand and stare at. It's like that Schmeagol or whatever his name was on Lord of the Rings. You know, it's my precious. That's what we treat it like, ain't it? My precious. Huh?
Actually, it's ironic that they call it a cell phone, because it actually is a cell. You're trapped in it.
Yep, that's the truth, ain't it? And you can stick it right in your pocket. It's with you wherever you want to take it. Now, things change a lot over time. And, you know, when me and Angie first got married, she carried a little purse around that's about that big. And you could stick a little bit of money in it or just the bare necessities and it was good to go. And the other day we went somewhere and picked Caitlin up. And I said, oh no, I think we're supposed to get her something to eat. She said, I got her lunch in my purse. I said, what? She said, yeah, I put it in my purse. Well, so I watched to see what happened. Caitlin got in the car. Angie had a complete lunch, including a drink, in her purse. Hold your purse up, Angie. Now see, that's how things change over time.
It's the mom first.
Yeah.
You have to have something of everything. If you're a mom, you've got to provide all.
Well, I don't see how the lunch fit in there for all the empty gum wrappers. I've told you before that I got saved when I was 8 years old in the 80s, and Mom was faithful to take us to meetings and church, and Dad never would go much, but Mom was faithful to take us to church. And back then, you would hear people talk a whole lot about serious things in church. You'd hear them talk a lot about witchcraft and demons and the occult and curses and things like that. Well, as I became a teenager and I guess I drifted a little bit, and Mom wasn't able to make me go as much as she could when I was a kid. I wasn't as faithful to church as I should have been, but you know, when I got married and Caitlin came along and stuff, we got back into coming to church. And we went to this church and that. But one thing I noticed is very seldom ever do you hear churches now talk about these serious spiritual things that we encounter every day. Now, when's the last time you heard somebody talk about witchcraft in church? Or demonic attacks or curses and things like this? And this is things that we deal with every day and we don't even know it. They're hid in plain sight. That's the best place to hide a lot of the time. You know what? You think about Satan and his tricks. He's pretty smart to just let us not talk about it. To not put it out there in front of us to where we have to see it. And then slowly he can sneak it in. Now I want to show you how easy this is to sneak into your life. Raise your hand if you like the Andy Griffith Show. Well, that's pretty much everybody in here. Raise your hand if you remember the episode 3 Wishes for Opie. You know, Barney goes to auction and buys the cards. And he says, come on, Opie, you want to have some fun? And Opie says, yeah, I want to have some fun. And they go into the back room and he starts laying out these cards and burning incense and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, Opie's granted 3 wishes. That's pure and simple witchcraft on the Andy Griffith show that you've sat there and watched. But now put yourself in the position of a child who says, come on. Somebody, when an adult says, come on, you want to have some fun? That's how easy witchcraft can be snuck into the life of your child.
Good, Kev.
I've got a book called Angels and Demons. I've had it for years. And I've read the section about the angels, and it's wonderful. It's taken me probably 5 years to even start the part about demons. The information is straight out of the Bible, and it's based on the Word, but I was kept away from that. What you were talking about, the devil not wanting us to know that. We can't fight against it if we don't know.
That's the truth. Well, if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. Okay, we used to hear things like witchcraft, demons, the occult, curses. And somebody explained to me why we never hear anything about this stuff anymore in our churches.
Well, there's Harry Potter. There's all kinds of little witchcraft shows out there. It's so common to see it around us in TV and movies that it's a non-issue because it's entertainment.
That's
And
right.
it's there, but nobody says anything about it.
Well, it's glorified in movies and TV.
We're desensitized to it because in commercials alone, there's so much evil that seeps into their homes that we see it all the time. Who's it coming into it?
That's exactly right. But in our churches, why do our churches never speak out against these things anymore? Huh?
Not politically correct.
That's right. Now, me and Mom and Caitlin just happened to have a conversation about this the other day that we sat in Mom's living room. And what Mom said was this. Nowadays, preachers don't preach on it because people don't want to give when they hear about it. The enemy and his devices are what we should hear about all the time, of course. But just because we don't talk about it, don't mean it's not there. The army teaches the soldiers to fight, and preachers should do the same thing for the soldiers in God's army. So she went on to say that Eric has been doing a good job lately of telling Cornerstone that there is an enemy, and we should be aware, and we should fight against him, and we should hate him. Now, you've preached on that 3 or 4 times here in the last month and a half, right? That we have an enemy. He hates you. He hates your children. And he's going to take them if he gets the chance. We should hate him. We should know how to fight against him. But in order to fight against him, we have to know the things that he's going to use, right?
Kevin, that's what's giving me the courage to sit down and open that section of the book. Is hearing Eric preach on it.
Good. So Cornerstone should be grateful for a pastor that will stand up against an evil
Amen.
enemy that hates you. I mean, the things that he's told us here lately are 100% true. And very few pastors around will stand up and say, you have to hate your enemy. Now turn over to Ephesians chapter number 6 right quick. Ephesians chapter 6, verse number 12. We've all heard this before. This is Paul, and he says, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." Okay. Listen to the way that's worded. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood. Okay? That's what's in the world, right? Against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world. So that tells me that there are things in this world that are not flesh and blood that we wrestle against, but they are things of this world. Right? So there are spiritual things in this world that we have to wrestle against. It's a spiritual fight. We are physical people. Now, we've talked in the past about speaking blessings and curses into your life and the lives of your children, and how we so casually do this. We will speak a curse into our child's life and not even realize that we're doing it. But we should always be speaking nothing but blessings into the lives of our children and in our own lives. But what I want to do today, and this is going to take a few lessons to do, I'd like to take a more in-depth look at exactly what a curse is and how we can be released from a curse. Somebody give me a definition of what a curse is. One person, give it a try.
There's several different definitions.
Nothing that takes hold of him, you can't let go of it, and he can't, I mean, it just seems like it just grabs you and.
Like a rut, you fall back into it, no matter how many times you try to stay out of it.
And the spirit of evil over.
Good. Anybody else?
Just heard this preaching this morning, down on TV, and he was talking about somebody who uttered a curse from, some people. And he said he was cursing, by cursing them, he was handing them over to God's victory. I don't know.
Okay. What's that? Good. Raise your hand if you ever think you've been under a curse. All right. Raise your hand if you know how to be released from it. Okay, let me give you the Google definition of a curse. It's a solemn utterance intended to invoke supernatural power to inflict harm or punishment on someone or something. And one more time. A solemn utterance intended to invoke a supernatural power to inflict harm or punishment over someone or something. Now somebody give me the definition of a blessing.
The opposite of curse. You utter something and say, you invoke God, or you invoke God to pour blessings upon your life instead of a curse.
Good. Somebody else.
Blessing is not only good, one of them good for someone.
Okay. So the definition of a blessing is God's favor and protection instilled in somebody's life. And that's what I want. I don't want to be cursed. I want the curses removed from my life. And like we were talking about this morning, I want God's blessings poured out in my life. I want nothing but the good. We're crazy for wanting anything else other than that.
Yeah, but sometimes we think, as we're going through this world, we think things that are a curse, God's using them as a blessing. And we have to be able to differentiate between that.
That's right. But now let's think about a blessing and a curse together. Both are vehicles of supernatural power from God if it's a blessing, or for evil if it's a curse. In other words, this is what carries either evil or good into your life. A blessing carries good. A curse carries evil into your life. Very frequently, both will continue from generation to generation, or until someone realizes how a curse operates, realizes what it is, and knows how to stop it. Now, we've seen time and time again in the Bible when, just for example, when Jacob spoke his blessing over Joseph's sons, how it continued from generation to generation to generation. Because he spoke that into his son and then his grandson's lives, it kept moving from child to child to child. When you speak blessings into the lives of your children, you are also speaking blessings into the lives of their children. But when a curse is invoked, or however you want to put it, into your life, that can carry from you to your child, from generation to generation to generation. This is very serious. The result a lot of the time is that a lot of people are living under a curse today because of something that happened many generations ago. I truly believe that sometimes mental problems that are handed from generation to generation are nothing more than a curse. It don't have to be this way. Now let's turn over to Galatians chapter number 3. And we'll show you something here. Galatians chapter number 3, we're going to start at verse number 13. It says, Christ hath redeemed us from the curse of the law, being made a curse for us. For it is written, Cursed is every one that hangeth on a tree, that the blessing of Abraham might come on the Gentiles, through Jesus Christ, that we might receive the promise of the Spirit through faith. Now listen to how that's worded. Christ has redeemed us from the curse. Now look down at verse 14. That the blessing of Abraham might come on the Gentiles. Raise your hand if you're a Gentile. We're all Gentiles in here. So Christ redeemed us from any curse that's put in our life.
Amen.
These two verses show an exchange that took place on the cross. Leviticus says that anyone that dies by hanging on a tree is cursed. So when Jesus died on the tree, that was the cross, he became a curse. In other words, any curse that's over you or placed in your life, had Jesus has already paid the price to have that removed and a blessing put in its place. That's what the Word says.
Amen.
What happened was a divinely ordained exchange in which these verses here clearly state that this price has already been paid for the blessings that you need and want and desire to have in your life. It's already paid for. Jesus took upon himself every curse that was due to us so that we can be redeemed from any curse. Not only that, when the exchange took place, we were redeemed from the curse and it can be replaced with God's blessing. He took the curse that was due to me and replaced it with the blessing that God has prepared for me. He's already prepared it. We do not have to live under a curse. But what happens often is people live their lives under a curse and they never know. They never even know that they are under a curse. Now, I heard this preacher, Derek Prince, he told this story. And he said that this Christian woman worked for a successful businessman. And they had like a board of directors. And she didn't know at the time that they were all under what we'd call a witch doctor. They all took their orders from her. And he brought this, what he called list of blessings to her and said, I would like you to type these up so I can give this out to my board members. Well, she saw, obviously, that it wasn't anything that a Christian should be typing up. And she took it back to him and told him, I don't feel comfortable doing this. I'm a Christian and I don't believe in this stuff. And he was gracious to her. He said, okay, I'll type it up myself. I didn't realize that I was offending you in any way. But that had to get back to that witch doctor.
Sure.
And I feel sure that she either prayed to somebody other than God or pronounced some kind of curse on this woman. Within weeks, her fingers got arthritis in them so bad that she couldn't type anymore. Now, I don't think that it's a coincidence that the thing that she refused to do is what was affected by this curse. She could not type anymore, so she wasn't going to type the list of blessings or curses is what it really was, because she could no longer type. The woman had pronounced a curse on this other lady's fingers. Okay, so this Derek Prince, somehow she heard about him and this how he. Long story short, he knew how to remove the curse from her. Okay, she prayed in the way that He showed her how to pray, and within minutes, her fingers freed up. She was completely healed. Now, she was not praying for healing. She was praying for the curse to be removed, and the healing was just part of it. And a lot of the time, the sicknesses that we have and these things that we have in our life are really curses, and if we can have the curse removed, then the healing comes with it. You understand how I'm trying to put this together to you? The problem a lot of the time is not the sickness, the problem's the curse.
Good, Kev.
And when the curse is removed, the sickness has to go.
Amen.
Yeah. You have to call it a curse.
Look at all the effects of the curses of depression and anxiety and stuff like that too. Physical, I mean, I'm sure you're, I won't get in front of you. But that
You're not?
stuff
Go
is,
ahead.
That stuff leads to, I mean, a list this long of side effects, physically, mentally, home life, everything. I mean, everything. It'll make you not eat or overeat. It'll make you not sleep or oversleep. It'll make you stay away or stay in one place in a dark room more. I mean, all that are side effects from the curse.
That's exactly right. And when what happens is we go to the doctor and they dope it.
Yeah, they try to treat one of the side effects instead of the problem.
That's exactly right. The problem was always the curse, and no kind of medicine will help a curse.
That's a good word.
It takes a spiritual solution for a spiritual problem.
Good, kid.
Okay, I asked the question, people live their lives under a curse and they never even know it. Somebody tell me why they don't know that they're living under a curse.
I don't believe curses exist, most likely.
That could be it. What else?
They're doing the same thing in generations. That's all they know to do.
Yeah, and think about it like this. If this curse, generational curse, is passed from your father to you, there's no reason for you to realize that it's a curse. You think it's a sickness. You think it's whatever. What the bottom line is, you fail to recognize it for what it is.
Well, you're being raised up, like just say your father was poor. You were raised up hearing the stick of being poor, the things that are affecting him, how he is reacting to it. You're growing up under that, so that by the time you're mature, you've already got enough in your mind to start believing, I'm poor, I have to do this, I have to do that. That's why so many generations never get out from under poverty, because they're raised in the poverty language.
That's exactly right. I truly believe that when I say this, you're going to think of somebody. You will see generation after generation after generation that live in poverty with nobody ever in that family being successful. That is a generational curse. It's the curse of poverty in their life.
Sometimes people just enjoy being in church.
Well, I can't reason out that kind of logic, but you're probably right.
Well, it becomes identity. I don't know if they enjoy it, but it becomes their identity.
Yeah.
A controlling identity is what it is.
It's their comfort zone, the same thing as the children of Israel wanting to go back to Egypt.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I always say, so my kids are very good, if I expect nothing, I'll get nothing. I expect a lot. And God expects a lot of us.
Well, it's just like in any sport or anything else. If you go expecting to lose, you're going to lose.
Kevin, I don't want to get ahead of you, but, I'll need to share something. My grandparents on my father's side, their whole family were just drank all the time. And my dad's brother and sisters, he had two older brothers that, both passed away from being alcoholics before they were 30 years old. And then my dad's youngest sister was
Yeah, and when you realized that you had to stand up against it, when it was brought into light in your life, you realized you had it and you had to stand up against it. And that's what this. We're not going to get through this today. This is going to be probably four lessons, but
Yeah, can I share that when we were newly married and going around the church and you came preached one night. And my family, there's one side, like you said, it's a lot of alcoholism, things like that. And on the other side, both sides of my family, my mom and my dad both, there was alcoholism. And mom's mom died when she was 8 years old, her dad was in death, right there. And our grandparents raised her in a godly home, well, she would have been probably done some of the same past us. He would have left her. But my dad, his dad was an alcoholic, went to prison when he was a young man for killing a man he never remembered killing, and someone supposedly killed the man and committed suicide. My grandfather spent his whole life in prison for that. And to have bad health, and my dad's mom, her whole family had mental illness. And it just has trickled in from generation to generation. But when I got saved, and I was going to that church, you prayed over me, and you prayed that God would break a generational curse over me. And he has poured nothing but blessings over me and you and Caitlin. And I believe it's through that he delivered me. But my dad and some of my still need deliverance from that. And it is real. And it is hard to see your family suffer and be rich, like just the repetitive things that just daily their lives just seem like nothing they do is ever done. But I know that God, and I'm still praying over my dad, that God will deliver him. That he will break this bondage, he will break this generational curse that just lingers over him. I just have such a burden for him, and it weighs on us. But it is real. That God can deliver us from that, and he delivered me.
it is real. And I truly believe that once we recognize what a curse is and know how to remove it from our lives, that Cornerstone is going to be a stronger church because of it.
Well, that's the truth.
Okay, now listen. Now I ask you the question. That people live under a curse and they never even know it. I ask the question why? Because they don't recognize that they're living under it. They fail to recognize it. That's the bottom line. And sometimes, even when they do, they don't know how to be released from it. I mean, a lot of people, if it was divinely revealed to me and I walked up to somebody in here and I said, I believe you're living under a curse and you need to be released from it, they would say, okay, I don't know how. So when we finish this up, I'm going to show you how to be released from it. This is what I want to do with these few lessons that we're going to have. How to recognize it, where it comes from, forms of blessings and curses, and how to remove the curse and replace it with the blessing in your life. Now, as we go through this, I want you all to remember, a curse can affect one area of your life, or it can affect your whole life. It's like rust on a car. First, it starts to affect just a little section of it. But over time, it starts to consume the whole car until the whole car is consumed and it's useless anymore. And that's what will happen in your life when this curse starts to grow in it.
Because it hides.
That's exactly right.
In places you can't get to and can't see without really looking.
The parts you can't get to, can't see, and can't clean.
Well, Renee's daddy, I stopped and was talking to Ray one day. He said that he took his truck, I think to the Toyota place. It was from Ashe County. And they said they'd never seen a truck, a Toyota of that model, without a speck of rust on it. And he said, you know why? I said, why? He said, people just stick a pressure washer under it and spray. He said, I crawl underneath it with a rain suit on. He said that I take a water hose and I wash every crevice. And he said it's never had a speck of rust.
And that's what you have to do with your life. You have to examine your whole life and find where these places are, where this stuff can hide. Now, Renee failed to do that with her CRV, and all right, it can. Yeah. All right, now a curse can affect one area of your life or your whole life. If it affects one area long enough, it's going to affect your entire life. It can move from generation to generation, And don't forget this, it can be dormant for years and show up in an instant. So as we talk about this, and I want you to examine every area of your life, every struggle, every aspect, mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, everything in your life, I want you to look for evidence of a curse in your life. It will make your life better, I promise. Now, the first thing I want to look at today are the forms that blessings and curses take. There's one chapter in the Bible that that's all it deals with. Somebody tell me what it is. Deuteronomy chapter 28. Turn over there if you will. Okay, in Deuteronomy chapter 28, it has 14 verses of blessings, and it has 54 verses of curses. I'm going to give you a summary, and then I want to look at a few of these here in just a minute. The main blessings and curses in Deuteronomy 28, there are 7 blessings. They are exaltations. In other words, you are lifted up in your life. Reproductiveness. You are fruitful in every area of your life. That's not talking about having children. It is talking about having children, but not that only. In every area of your life, you are fruitful. Number 3, health. We all want to be healthy. Number 4, success and prosperity. And of course, we have to be careful there because sometimes God will take us through a period of want in order to teach us something, and that's not a curse. That's a lesson. But God desires for us to be successful and prosperous. Victory. Number 6, you will be the head and not the tail. In other words, you'll lead and not follow. Number 7, you will be above, not beneath. Now, I want you to examine your life and ask yourself, are you living in this manner? Are you lifted up? Are you fruitful in everything you do? Are you healthy? Are you successful? Are you victorious? Are you the leader, not the follower? Are you above and not below? If you can say yes in every aspect of this, you are living with God's blessings being poured out in your life. That's right where you want to be. But now let's look at the curses. And what you're going to see is they're the exact opposite. Humiliation, failure to reproduce, barrenness, sickness. And there's no sickness left out when you read this Deuteronomy 28. There's something, if you're sick, there's something in this chapter that will cover it. Poverty or failure at life. Defeat. You are the tail and not the head. You are beneath and not above. Somebody asks you, how are you doing? Well, I'm doing good under the circumstances. Well, what are you doing under the circumstances? When you're blessed, you're above the circumstances. And that's where you want to be. Now, I want to break it down just a little bit more and see how this was wrote by Moses. But let's apply this for the people of today. Indicators that somebody may be living under a curse. And what you want to look for is several of these problems. Mental or emotional breakdown. You fall apart easy. Repeated or chronic sickness, especially if it's hereditary, it's a generational curse. And here's key to that. When doctors can't find a real cause for what this sickness is. If the doctor says, I don't really know what's causing this, then you say, it's spiritual. It's not a physical thing. It's scary when the doctor says, I don't know what's causing this. Female problems, it's all listed in here. Barrenness, multiple miscarriages, monthly problems, you can figure out what that is. Breakdown of marriages or family alienation. Families fall apart. We all know somebody, they'll get married, they'll have a family, it'll fall apart. They'll get married, they'll have another family, it'll fall apart. Time after time after time. That is a curse. Now, financial insufficiency or prolonged poverty, especially if it's hereditary. That's what we always said, already called it, a generational curse. Now think about this. We can have somebody that never can get ahead financially, but can have a successful marriage. And that's what I was talking about. You can have a curse in one area of your life that don't affect anything else. And you have to look for these things. A history of suicide or unnatural death in a family. In other words, I can think of one family right now that for generation after generation after generation, the father in the family has committed suicide. And I was talking to the one who committed suicide most recently, and he told me one time, he said, they say if you see your father who's committed suicide, you will commit suicide. And that's been 7-8 years ago, and 3 months ago he committed suicide. His father had committed suicide. I truly believe that's a curse. A curse is like a dark shadow that hangs over your life, shutting out the light of God's blessing. It would seem that God pours out His blessings on everybody around you. They always get the blessing, and you always miss out. Has anybody ever felt that way? That everybody around you is being blessed, and everything in your life is going wrong. You have to look for these patterns. You have to look for, if you got several of these, you can count on the fact that you're living under a curse. Now look over here at Deuteronomy chapter 28. I wanted to get through this today. We'll read a few of these. And I want you to look, the list that I gave you, how they're listed in here. Deuteronomy 28, let's start verse number 2. All these blessings shall come upon thee and overtake you if you will hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God. Now, that's where I want to live my life. I want to be overtaken by blessings. Blessed shall thou be in the city, blessed shall thou be in the field. Blessed shall be the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of the ground, and the fruit of thy cattle, the increase of thy kind, and the flocks of thy sheep. Blessed shall be thy basket and thy store. Blessed shall thou be when thou comest in, and blessed shalt thou be when thou goest out. The Lord shall curse thine enemies and that rise up against thee to be smitten before thy face. They shall come in against thee one way and flee before thee 7 ways. The Lord shall command the blessings upon thee. I want blessings commanded in my life by God. The Lord shall command the blessings upon thee in thy storehouse, and in all that thou set thine hand unto. He shall bless thee in the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. The Lord shall establish thee an holy place unto Himself, that He hath sworn unto thee, if thou shalt keep the commandments of the Lord thy God, and walk in His ways. And all the people of the earth shall see thee, that thou art called by the name of the Lord, and they shall be afraid of thee. In other words, the people that want to rise up against you at work or wherever that they're going to rise up against you, they're going to see that you're called by God, and they're going to be afraid to do that. And the Lord shall make thee plenteous in goods, in the fruit of thy body, in the fruit of thy cattle, in the fruit of the ground, which the Lord sware unto thy fathers to give thee. The Lord shall open up thee His goods, His good treasure, the heaven to give rain unto thy land in His season, and to bless all the work of thine hand. And unto thou shalt lend unto many nations, thou shalt not borrow. And the Lord shall make thee the head and not the tail, and thou shalt be above only, and thou shalt not be beneath. If that thou hearken unto the commandments of the Lord thy God, which I command unto thee this day, to observe and do them. Now listen to this. Start at verse number 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe all His commandments and His statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Cursed shall thou be in the city, cursed shall thou be in the field. Cursed shall be thy basket and thy store. Cursed shall be the fruit of the body, of thy body, and the fruit of the land, the increase of thy kind, and the flocks of your sheep. Cursed shall be thou be when thou comest in, cursed shall thou be when you goest out. The Lord shall send upon thee cursing, vexation, and rebuke in all thou settest thy hand unto, until thou be destroyed, and until thou perish quickly because of the wickedness of thy doings, whereby thou hast forsaken me. The Lord shall make unto thee pestilence cleave unto thee, until he hath consumed thee from off the land whither thou goest to possess. The Lord shall smite thee with consumption, and with a fever, and with inflammation, and with an extreme burning, with the sword, and with blasting, and with mildew. They shall pressure thee until thou perish. Now skip over to, this is giving a list of sicknesses that you could be smitten with. Now, verse 27, the Lord shall smite thee with the botch of Egypt and with the emerods. Now I challenge somebody to research out what emerods are and let me know. Huh? Yep. And the Lord, and let's skip on closer to the end because we're about out of time here. Let's skip down to verse 42. All thy trees and thy fruit of the land shall the locust consume. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high. Now think about the way that's worded. The stranger that is within thee. What's that talking about? Huh? We're going to get into all this. Verse 43, the stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. And he shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend unto him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, and keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. Now this is some serious stuff. Now this is going to take us probably 4 lessons to get through this, but in the end, I truly believe Cornerstone is going to be a stronger church because of it. But I want y'all to, your homework until next lesson is to pray for me that I can get it together and bring it to you in a way that will help you. And pray for yourselves that you can see if this is in your life. Is that fair enough? Alan, you pray for us.